Hello and welcome. I am really happy to be connecting with you today. Thank you for being here. We're doing a timeless collective reading. Simply and powerfully, I'm asking what messages from Spirit is there for the viewer at the time they find this video. So we're beginning with the Soul Tree Oracle to get some main themes. Oh, assurance. Wow. That's beautiful. Maybe I'll show you first. I love the assurance card. I think assurance as a concept in general is just a really beautiful concept. Meaning, like in our culture, typically we don't value assurance. We almost think if we need to be assured that there is like something wrong with us. But I think there's such importance in putting ourselves in positions in our communities and people around us where assurance is important, and assurance is a big part of what makes those communities healthy. And so what I mean by that is not like an enabling behavior, but assurance. And maybe as I say that, isn't it interesting to think about the difference, just like feel into the difference between those two words, assurance and enabling. Assurance is so grounded, right? And I'm really noticing the full moon in the back of this card, which is speaking to me about like the moon card in the tarot, which to me often means like going into the unknown, having to be led by something other than what's obvious, right? And when we're having to be led by something other than what's obvious, we need places in our life where we are gaining assurance. So this is really speaking to me actually about healthy relationships. Do you have healthy relationships in your life that are where there's assurance going back and forth? So there's not toxicity going back and forth. There's not game playing going back and forth. There's not enabling going back and forth. There's this rooted assurance. I frankly, I guess because the full moon is in this card too, that often represents a willingness to let go. So I think there is some information in this reading about really evaluating the relationships around you and having a strong willingness to let go when people's patterns of behavior are not showing that they're in alignment with this very rooted, grounded essence of assurance, of healthy relationships, of healthy dynamics. And I'm just sort of loving the depiction of the tree, because if you look at, I'll grab this deck. If you look at this deck, you'll see that there's like many different depictions of trees. Okay. Some of them are more wild, intense. So the assurance card it's got that grounded beauty to it, doesn't it? And I mean, frankly, I'm just loving it with these flowers. Isn't that beautiful? So I think the theme of this reading is how to establish healthier relationships. Oh my God, look at this. Look at how much this depiction of this tree is just like kind of nodding to these are like a wild onion in my garden. Oh my God, that's so weird. Okay, please excuse me. I think this is a nod to, or excuse me, not a nod. This is information about how to find or how to create healthier relationship dynamics. I think if you were to stop this reading right now, it's encouraging you to really feel into this idea of assurance. So essentially like no game playing, no, again, like I said, toxicity going back and forth. There's just this really grounded essence of essentially like healthy feels healthy. Does that make sense? Like, I think sometimes when we get into our head, we can be like, we can normalize a lot of toxicity just in our life, but certainly in our relationships. And we can like think that somehow there's like these, it's like we do something with the cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean? I'm somebody who's used to not like true crime or document or like cult things or things like that, but I woke up and realized I needed to understand kind of how some of these things happened. And so over the last many years, I have like kind of dove into that sphere to try to understand like how do we justify doing the worst things to each other? Not as like a trying to keep things or like trying to like saturate myself in evil, but to try to understand more what causes that so I can recognize it in myself and others, get myself healthier, and keep myself and the people I care about safe and protected. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is what I noticed in all of that, you could call it research, is that it's what we do with cognitive dissonance that is how we can justify doing really awful things to each other. So my point in saying all that is assurance is like there's a lacking of cognitive dissonance. So let me take a breath. I feel like that's a weird way to say it. We don't have, like safe feels safe. Okay. So if somebody is trying to make you feel like maybe they're emotionally berating you is somehow doing you good, do you see how there's like a gap between what's actually happening and what it's being labeled as? And so what we do in that gap is called cognitive dissonance. What we do with that cognitive dissonance is either we're like, nope, that's wrong. Safe feels safe. Or we say, oh, they must have a higher purpose, or they know more, so on and so forth. And so there's like, in this assurance card, there's very much a like, dissolve the cognitive dissonance message that wants to come through. This idea that safe feels safe, that assurance feels like assurance. It doesn't feel like somebody berating you. It doesn't feel like any game playing. Assurance feels like assurance. Do you know what I mean? Like you can trust how you feel about something. And if there is and maybe I'll just speak for myself. In the past, I've had emotional addiction to try to protect people that maybe were not the healthiest. So emotionally buffer people that maybe weren't willing to self-reflect themselves, instead of emotionally buffering myself, keeping myself healthy, emotionally buffering myself so I could feel my feelings honestly. I could feel my instincts, things like that. And so I am on a journey, I'm on a healing journey of being willing to take that emotionally buffering that I can addictively do for other people and bringing it back to myself. And when I do that, not only am I assuring myself, but then there isn't this cognitive dissonance that I have to make up for, because I'm willing to just see things more for what they are and then make choices from that place. Do you feel the groundedness in that? So then I assure myself, and more, then I put myself in relationships, build communities where assurance is like a natural part of that, like where both parties or people within the communities are assuring. We're not trying to like, what am I trying to say? Like cover up the toxicity with certain wow, these are powerful cards. Cover up the toxicity with certain charms. And that's just so interesting because the Knight of Cups comes out at the bottom of the deck, which is just wild to me because Knight of Cups, how I often read it, this isn't how everybody reads it, but for a variety of reasons, how I often read it is like charm without substance. Okay. So I think that, I mean, it being at the bottom of the deck is telling me that there is like, that's kind of like the enduring message, which is exactly the opposite of assurance, right? And is kind of nodding to everything I'm trying to spit out in a pretty messy way, which is like, there's this call to collapse this idea within yourself. And by collapse, I don't mean it has to be overnight, but just baby step by baby step, collapse this this belief that if you are noticing charm without substance is there for a good reason. And instead to really look from a very grounded sense, when somebody is showing you that quality within themselves, that is a major red flag. Oh, interesting too. And for the first time ever in this depiction of it, I'm noticing this big red blob right there going forward. It's almost to me like in this depiction, speaking to me about like troubling behavior becoming more known, if that makes sense. So let's look at these cards. So we've got the Nine of Pentacles in reverse, Ace of Cups, the Sun, and the Nine of Cups. Wow. Okay. So like I think, okay, so the Nine of Cups came out first, and I'm not going to read all these cards that came with it. I think the main one here is the Nine of Cups. I think what that's speaking to in this reading is really this this call to understand, or let me say it differently. It's speaking to the quote unquote reward for the difficult work of collapsing cognitive dissonance. And that is Nine of Cups. That's wish fulfillment. That's everything you want in terms of emotional satisfaction. So it really feels like it's saying that the card, the energy that wants to come through is this understanding of how difficult this work can be to identify charm without substance, to identify where we might be justifying our own behavior or other people's behavior when it's not rooted in something grounded, when it's not equaling what someone says it's equaling. So again, like an example would be someone saying they love you, but then they berate you, right? So recognizing all that, awakening to all that can be very, very challenging. But there also is massive rewards at the more that we do it, and that is true emotional satisfaction. Because with assurance, there is things equal what they are, which I know sounds like weird, but again, from everything I've learned about when we can be the most awful to each other as human beings, it's we're connecting things that aren't supposed to be connected, or we're labeling things inaccurately. So we're thinking we're doing something for a great cause while we're harming somebody, right? So it's that space between that, how we can think that is where our work lies. And so when things just are what they are, so we label things accurately, then more and more we get true, enduring emotional satisfaction versus a like hungry ghost sort of experience of life. And again, like Knight of Cups can kind of, and in this reading is definitely giving me that energy, that like hungry ghost. Again, it's this idea that there's charm without substance. Something isn't equaling what it is, which is the opposite of assurance. True assurance is this like enduring comfort and safety. It's safety feels safe. It's love feels like love. You know what I mean? Health feels healthy. There isn't all these mind games we have to do in between to make that seem accurate. And I think, again, when we're making something seem accurate, usually that's a red flag that something is not, or something, there's some sort of toxic dynamic going on within ourselves or others. And again, recognizing that toxicity is some of the hardest work each of us, I think, will be called to do in our lifetime. But then it is some of the most rewarding work. There is this enduring emotional satisfaction that comes from work like that. And so in terms of more detailed messages, I'm noticing here we've got, it starts off with the the 10 of Pentacles in reverse. Oh, well, that's even more interesting. Okay. Ace of Cups. Wow. And the Sun. Well, oh, I mean, this is just, you can't make this stuff up. It just basically mimics everything. I love when the cards do that. It mimics everything that we've been saying. So 10 of Pentacles in reverse to me is saying, notice when something's out of integrity. So 10 of Pentacles upright is this really beautiful card of like wealth and abundance because like the soil has been tended to. So in other words, like if you think of like an ecosystem, a diverse agricultural ecosystem. If the soil is healthy and then you plant the seeds and you tend to those seeds, and then over long periods of time, you reap the rewards. The plants bear fruit over generations and to generations to come, right? But that's because initially things were done well. You know, so there isn't things built on sandy soil, so to speak, right? So when it's coming up in reverse, I think there's this message of, again, noticing charm without substance. So I guess put another way is the Ten of Pentacles to me is really always screams in a beautiful way, integrity. Integrity. Because I think we can have no abundance, no wealth without integrity. Right? And so it's always to me screaming integrity, integrity, integrity. And so again, put a different way, again, we've got charm without substance here. We've got like assurance versus like this false sense of security. And here we have the message of notice what is out of integrity in yourself and others. And I think like in our culture, which has this tendency to be like, to glorify toxic positivity, we can almost think this is like negative. But I think there's such power, again, in seeing clearly and labeling things accurately. And so I think the message here is a permission slip to notice what's out of integrity. That doesn't mean you have to say that to the other party. And it doesn't just mean what's out of integrity in others. It's okay to notice what's out of integrity in ourselves so that we can fill that gap. That's not like being negative on ourselves. That's just being honest, right? And then we can more and more fill the gap so that we're more and more in integrity, reaping rewards that are not only like of abundance, but of abundance sustainably, and then leading to that enduring emotional satisfaction, the Nine of Cups, right? So the message here is notice what's out of integrity, and that leads to a new emotional beginning, the Ace of Cups, a new emotional start, a new emotional journey. I mean, and we've got the Ace of Cups to the Nine of Cups. Isn't that amazing? Ace of Cups to the Nine of Cups in this one reading, meaning you have such potential to move powerfully on this journey if you're willing to take that initial ace that the universe is giving you, that seed of potential. And what it's saying in this reading is definitely the seed that you're being asked is to see clearly, right? So to eliminate toxic positivity, or I shouldn't say eliminate it, but minimize it, baby step by baby step by baby step, and to see clearly what's out of integrity, to see clearly what is charm without substance, and then to illuminate. I mean, you just can't make this up. We've got the sun. So the sun is one of the happiest cards in the deck. It's such a beautiful sign of like you're on the right track with this energy. But the reason it's one of the happiest cards in the deck is because precisely with what we're talking about, it's because it illuminates dark corners. So it's not in a false sense of like toxic positivity again. The sun makes its way to the Nine of Cups, emotional satisfaction, because it's not scared to look at what's actually happening. Okay. And when I say not scared, I don't really like that particular verbiage came out of my mouth, because I think we're all scared at first. Let's be honest. Like, let's just be honest. When we're going to shine light on something we haven't been willing to shine light on before, like unconsciously or consciously, maybe we have unconsciously been unwilling, or we've been consciously unwilling, doesn't really matter. When we are going to shine light on something we haven't shined light before, I think we're all scared at first. Okay. So I don't mean to imply that courage equals not being scared. But I do think like courage, I think always starts with being scared, and then it's what we do with that fear. Now, I'm not somebody anymore who is like, feel the fear and do it anyways in any situation, right? I think there's a lot of situations where we can build our sense of safety and security and safety nets, right? But I do think when it comes to illumination, there's always within ourselves. So being willing to see clearly, being willing to shine the light on things that we weren't willing to before. That's always what truth is asking of us, right? And with truth, with illumination, comes that enduring satisfaction. And so I don't think it's ever it's always a worthwhile endeavor, right? And the caveat is, I think it's important to look at what sort of supports you need in your life in order to do this, so that you're not putting yourself on, or so that you're keeping yourself safe as you baby step by baby step continue to illuminate the dark corners in your life, while then cleaning it up and moving towards this deep emotional satisfaction and enduring assurance. So let's take a breath on that, shall we? It's really a beautiful message. If this is your reading, if you're feeling a resonance with this message, I just want to reflect back the strong integrity and sense of self that I'm feeling. I know that that might not be how you feel as you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I have to shine a light on where maybe there isn't integrity in my life. But I think anybody who's like we're all out of integrity in some way. Do you know what I mean? So I think the goal in terms of being a solid person isn't to be never out of integrity. I think the willingness to look at where you're out of integrity makes you that solid person. Does that make sense? And so I think keeping that in mind, it's like, there's that quote, it's something like, detecting a willingness to detect negativity within yourself is actually a positive act. Have you heard that quote before? I can't remember where it comes from. I think it's like some sort of self-help book in like the 90s or something. but that I think really applies here in terms of like just allowing yourself to feel good about yourself as you're noticing things you want to clean up, and realizing that willingness to notice things you want to clean up is actually very, very healthy and very, very positive. Again, going back to kind of what I was trying to like messy say at the beginning, what I've learned from all the true crime and cult documentaries I've watched, it's the unwillingness that's the problem. It's not the like seeing things clearly. It's not the fact that you have things to clean up. That's a problem. We all have things to clean up, right? It's the unwillingness to see them clearly and clean them up and then defend that. That's where real issues start to become. And something I want to say too, I was like talking to a friend about this recently, and it is that because I'm hearing willingness come out of my mouth a lot. And so it's this idea that I've come to realize that willingness is sacred, so we're not, because it's sacred, we have to be careful where we put it. So let me try to explain. There's like this idea that we have to be like really great people to be great, right? But I think then what happens is we can come up with these concepts of what is great and double down on them, and then they might not actually be great. So I think what is more great is this willingness to allow life, God, universe, spirit, whatever you call that essence that is wiser than us, to teach us. And what that requires is willingness. It's making me think of A Course in Miracles. In the intro to A Course in Miracles, it says, you cannot establish the curriculum. Free will is only in the time you elect in what you want to take in. So to me, what that's saying is like, we don't get to say like what love is or kindness is. We don't get to decide what works. And when we just do decide what works, so when we label something as good and then we double down on it, even though we might be noticing harm is coming from it, that causes real issues, right? But when we can have willingness with Mama God, when we can have willingness with Spirit to say, I am willing to have you teach me here. I'm willing to see where my blind spots are. I'm willing to clean this up. That's a sacred act, right? However, going back to this whole idea that came up at the beginning of the reading, which is just like really looking at where there may be toxicity within relationships, if we give that willingness to the wrong thing, that can be an issue. So for example, if there's somebody in your life who's always willing to twist things to make you wrong, and you're continually giving your willingness to that toxicity, that commitment to making you wrong, versus, for example, giving that willingness to, again, Mama God, Spirit, Universe, saying, help me see this clearly. Do you see how like that willingness can be used in a completely different way? One, to clean things up, to illuminate, to lead towards more Nine of Cups expansion, Nine of Cups emotional satisfaction, enduring emotional, like enduring peace, really. And one can lead to more and more and more toxicity. One leads to more deep, enduring assurance. One leads to more charm without substance, which can be very toxic and frankly dangerous as it goes more and more and more to the extreme ends of the continuum. So with that said, let's get a final message here from the Wandering Heart deck. One final message, please, for the viewer. Silver lining. Card 7. Let's read from the guidebook. Oh, wow. So card 7, you're not going to believe this. It's satisfaction. That is wild, right? Satisfaction and karma, it says. It says there will always be a silver lining somewhere nearby. Your optimism pays off. The days of disorientation, wow. The days of disorientation, rejection, affliction, and instability have come to an end. And looking back, you can make more sense of them. Wow. That is really just mimicking everything we said, isn't it? This idea of illumination, this idea that dispelling, dissolving that disorientation is really where our work lies in terms of deep healing, in terms of cleaning things up so we can figure out how to be kinder to one another and work as communities, and more selfishly, in a positive sense, having that deep sense of emotional stability, security, and satisfaction. Okay, so I'm going to read it one more time. Card 7, silver lining, satisfaction and karma. Your optimism pays off. The days of disorientation, rejection, affliction, and instability have come to an end, and looking back, you can make more sense of them. Your heart feels absolute. Your mind is tranquil and serene. You've prevailed through a multitude of turmoil and disadvantages that you were convinced you would never make it past. You've gone through relationships that were severely toxic and terribly demanding overall. You made the right choice by removing yourself and choosing your mental health and self-development before all else. Wow. It came out upward and it says, this is a sign of revival. Wow. Soon love will show up in a restorative form. Oh my God, assurance. That feels like love in a restorative form. Isn't that like a beautiful way to put it? Like as you more and more restore true love to yourself and to your relationships and to your community, there's more and more just genuine, grounded assurance. Wow. That's wild. I just love, I love when the cards do this. It just like, you just like can't make this stuff up. Okay. Once again, this is a sign of revival. Soon love will show up in a restorative form. Your decision-making will derive from the root of protection. Wow. You will save yourself from landing in uncontrollable situations, not frequenting or repeating patterns of the past. To be open to the concept of new friends, new pets, new career opportunities, new sources of income, and new rituals and routines for yourself. This is a new life. Wow. Okay, we're going to end on that. This is ultimately such a positive reading. You're such a strong individual. This is such a beautiful sign, not only a beautiful summary of the energy I was feeling from the cards, but also just a beautiful sign that, again, this work is worth it, that you are on the right track, and a massive, massive permission slip to choose yourself, choose your development, choose health, and to funnel your sacred willingness towards more kindness towards yourself and others, and less toxicity and deception in any area of your life that may be showing up. So I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for tuning in.